Hey sis.
Who, me? Who, me? Who, me?
Yes, you. Hello, welcome back to the HSYS Yes You podcast. I am your host, Jalyssa, and oh my gosh, I have one of my absolute besties on today. Everyone give it up for my girl, Tatiana. Hey, Tatiana, how are you today, sis?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing better now because I miss you. Oh my gosh. Okay, I would love for you to introduce yourself to the podcast.
Yes, I am Tatiana. I am a mom of my daughter Emery. She is 5. I'm a wife, and I am very passionate about helping women to see the potential that they have, specifically when it comes to just things that they've always wanted to do, but they talk themselves out of it. They make all of the excuses and all of those different things. And so through that, I've done businesses. I've become a business coach and just love to share my heart in a lot of different ways, different platforms and things that I have. So that's a bit about me. And I'm excited to chat with you all today.
Yay. Okay, Tatiana is an incredible entrepreneur. I mean, you have just such a gift in entrepreneurship, like never-ending ideas, a freaking Niagara Falls rushing water of creativity. It's crazy. I go to Tatiana for everything. Literally, I'm like, I have this business idea, I have this concept, and she literally makes my things come to life. So I just wanted to preface by saying she's that girl, humble, but she's that girl. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Okay, Tatiana. So before we started recording, I was sharing with you, like, I'm excited for this because I think my aim of the podcast is for the woman to be seen, not
Yeah.
just all that she produces. And so I'm super excited for you to share your story with us because even as your friend, I've known you for like 6 years now. I was like, Tatiana and I mostly talk about business, but we don't spend a ton of time talking about childhood or traumas or hardships. And I'm
Yeah.
just so grateful that you would give my little platform the privilege of hearing your story today. So, would you like to share your story with us today?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it is not a little platform. This is an amazing thing you are doing. I'm so proud of
Thank
you.
you.
And I'm very excited for this. Yeah, it's like a chance for us to just get to know each other even more, but with friends. So
Yes, exactly.
but yeah, so a little about my story. So let's see. Well, I've always been a creative, for as long as I can remember. I think the first time I really got into music and everything, that was kind of where it all started, was when I was maybe around like 6 or 7 years old.
Wow.
I had already loved singing and different things like that, and I had got a piano for Christmas from my grandmother one year. And I'll never forget, I had taught myself how to play, which is kind of crazy at the time, y'all. Don't judge me. We didn't know about R.
Right.
Kelly back in the day. We didn't know. But I had taught myself how to play one of the melodies from one of his songs on the piano. And my mom had called my grandmother and she was like, she taught herself how to play this by ear, and this is
The
crazy. And so
prodigy.
I,
The prodigy was
so from
born.
there, it kind of just went into me writing my own music and continuing to sing more. I was in all of the different choirs, and I played violin for a few years and just really pretty much put all my eggs in the music basket. So that was really what I did. And that was what I was known for basically up until I graduated from high school. I sung at my high school graduation and all of those different things like that. And so God had pretty much placed it in me early on that I had the gift of singing. But there was this other feeling that I had too of wanting to inspire women, but I felt like I was going to do it through music and my lyrics and the songs and things that I wrote. Like there's this one song that I wrote. I was actually telling my husband about this. This is so embarrassing, but it was the song. It was called "For All You Girls." I think I wrote this when I was like 8. Okay, so it was like
Period.
for you, it was like for all you girls out there who got them men who don't care, who beat you up, who beat you down. It's around. I got a
Wait.
message for you. This is what you should do. You should get away from him because he don't love you. Okay, that was like one of the first things. I still remember that.
Wait a
And
minute.
I'm like, I had never been in a relationship really, them little kindergarten relationships. Never knew nothing about being with no
I'm
man, and
weak.
definitely didn't know anything about getting beat up and down. But anyways, So
Why
from
have you
early
never
on,
sang that song for me before?
and I'm not going to sing it. That's why I just said the
Oh
words.
man.
We're not even going to do the singing of it. But
Oh, that's
yeah,
good.
so it was just it's interesting. Like, so I always had that in me, like, oh, I'm just going to encourage women, help them get out of difficult seasons and different things. As far as my home life and everything was concerned, I am really blessed. God blessed me with an amazing family, an
Mhm.
amazing strong mom and grandmother and great grandmother. So I had an opportunity to have my great grandmother in my life all the way up until I graduated from college. Just a few
Wow.
months shy of me graduating, she passed away. So
Wow.
I'm so grateful for that. And then I also had both of my parents at home. Although, my dad was not always around. So I think that really played a huge role in some of like the inconsistencies with my confidence at times. Just, trying to get attention from him and different things like that. But also feeling like, I have this whole family, they love me, they care about me and all of those things. But I had this huge pressure of getting into music and making it happen. So fast forward, I graduate from college, and while I was there, I had this weird, well, actually, no, backtrack. While I was in college, I had this feeling of, oh, like I was really good at singing. I won best singer at school. And so I'm about to kill it here. And within the first couple of months of being a freshman in college, I realized like there's a lot of good people here. There's a lot of
Mm.
Mozarts here and a lot of people that have been, they're classically trained to do this stuff. And it was all very new to me because I was self-taught. And so it was one of the first times where how I felt like not enough basically started to
Mm.
really creep in because I'm like, okay, there's a lot of people here. They're good at what they do. It's just little old me taught myself some stuff on the piano, recorded my little stuff on GarageBand. Like, who am I to be here? I remember I called actually a few of my family members, but my mom, my godmother, my grandmother, telling them like, I don't belong here, like,
Mm.
so it was just a rough time. And then from there, I slowly started to see that music was not going to be my path. And it really hurt me a lot, just to think
Yeah.
like for so many years, you are known as this one thing, like you're the singer, you're the person that's going to make it and succeed in this industry. And then when that didn't happen, I ended up shifting gears and doing marketing. So it was completely out of
Wow.
left field and random, but I wasn't getting the internships that I needed to get into the industry. I had my YouTube channel. It wasn't taking off singing covers and different things. And so at a certain point, my family, they raised me to be like, okay, girl, you need a plan B. You always need to have something else in your back pocket. And so I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll do business and kind of see where it goes. And so I feel like that's kind of where my love of business came from, I guess you could say.
Mm.
Just those first classes I took in college. I had never wanted to be an entrepreneur. And yeah, so that's a little bit about how I got from the singer to college hopeful, but not so much.
I love that. I love that. Okay, first and foremost, shout out to the women in your life. You said your mother, your grandmother, and your great grandmother. Like, what a beautiful legacy. And just to see that you got to experience your great grandmother. And because I know you personally, I know that your grandmother and your mother are such pivotal roles, play such
Oh,
pivotal roles in your life. Like, everything that you do. I love when I like hop on one of your calls or one of your courses and I see your grandmother's name and I see your mom's name on every Zoom. It is just so beautiful. So good for them. Like in Women's History Month, we're acknowledging all the girls who make the girls thrive.
yes.
Okay. I love that so much. Okay. So, there's like this word that always comes to mind. And I think you and I have had multiple conversations about this. And it's that concept of like pivoting.
Hmm.
So when you're growing up, you're this little music prodigy, right? And then you're known for
Prodigy.
that. Listen, because I got a 6, 7 year old that they could barely teach themselves how to spell, let alone play an instrument, okay? And so you're like known for that. It almost becomes like your identity, right? It's like Tatiana the singer.
Yeah.
What was that moment like in your life when you realized, like, oh, this identity almost is maybe being stripped from me and I have to attach myself to something new? What was that process like for you?
Ooh, it was a hard one. After I graduated from college, I didn't have the like American dream type of
Hmm.
situation. So, I moved back home with my parents. That was not in the cards. I ended up having like a whole bunch of random odd jobs just doing things that didn't have anything to do with my degree whatsoever, retail, cleaning, like all of those different types of things. And I honestly, I was depressed for a bit. I ended up going
Mm.
to therapy for a while. My mom had got me into that because I had this narrative of like I failed. I didn't get into
Yeah.
the industry. Like I went to school for this. Now I'm back at home. I'm not working in this field. I have not made it, quote unquote, made it to where I thought I would be. And I felt like I think what I was at like 21 when I graduated, I felt like I had already failed at life. So that
Mm.
was the kind of pressure that I was dealing with at that time. So it was definitely a challenge to remove that label from myself. I did still like sing on YouTube and I would still dibble and dabble in it, but I realized that like that wasn't going to be the path for me. But it was kind of like a whole relearning of who I am, which I think is natural, for anyone,
Yeah.
even if you're not like a singer or whatever the case is. But I think it's just natural. Like once we in the whole, like the things we're expected to do, like we're expected to go to school, we're expected to potentially, for some families, you're expected to go to college and different things. And then after you do that, you're kind of out in the world. There's
Mm-hmm.
no more people telling you what to do. Now you have to figure it out for yourself. And so at the
Mm-hmm.
time, I didn't realize that this is natural. And all I'm looking at is people I graduated with that are living in New York where I wanted to live, or people are, getting into their careers immediately. And I'm just like, look at little old me. So it was
Yeah.
a struggle, but I mean, looking back, I'm grateful for it because it really made me stronger. But I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't miss singing and music and all that stuff. Like it'll always be
Of
a part of me.
course. Yeah. I love that. And we get to see glimpses of that. Like I remember your YouTube intro was one of your songs.
Oh,
And my
yeah.
son Ezra he's obsessed with music also. But at the time he was maybe like 4, maybe 3, and he would always walk around the house and go change and he didn't even know like what he was saying. He would just be like change all the time. Mimicking your song and I'm like, that's my friend. So yeah, I
Oh,
love that you still incorporated that into your life and even into your content, even after you pivoted to something different, because that was and is always going to be a part of who you are. And so I think that you
oh,
show that very beautifully. But I'm curious, and you said that when you got there, right? There's all these people who were like classically trained and who were like top tier. And when you was growing up, that was you. You were the one, the head honcho, right? What did that feel like? And in what ways do you know what, let me backtrack a little bit. So there's that piece. But then you also mentioned how growing up, when there was those moments where you were trying to maybe get your dad's attention, you were maybe trying to like lean into him a little bit more. So you have that piece of your story, and then you have that piece of your story where you get to college and you were no longer considered the best of the best. In what ways do those two things play a role, or at that time in life play a role in maybe your confidence and your security about who you were?
oh my gosh, so much because I think I feel like a lot of women can relate to the dad thing in some ways. I mean, like my dad was there every single day of my life. He provided for our family. He was always there. So, um, in that aspect, but I think the emotional piece for me is what was missing. And so not having that, even though I had like the strong, supportive, like 3 women, and all that stuff, I think we
Yeah.
all like crave the attention of our dads and things
Yeah.
like that. I know that even to be able to sit here and say that now, I know that from going to therapy. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have, if I wouldn't have gone and worked
Mm.
through it, I wouldn't even know. But that definitely played a role just because the little girl of me, right? Just feeling like, oh, I just want my dad's attention. I just want to feel like I'm enough. And I mean, there's so many layers to why it was that way, but the main thing I will say is that no matter what the layers are as a child, all you know is I want attention, I'm not getting it, and or I want this type of relationship and I'm not seeing it, but I see other people with their fathers and they're really close and different things. And so that just automatically created a narrative of I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And so then when you fast forward to me in college, I feel like singing was kind of like the one thing that I really had that I felt super confident with. I felt very sure of. I felt like, okay, this is a gift, this is a talent of mine that I've always had. And so to go there and then kind of feel like I'm an amateur, it was a really rough time. Just definitely a lot of having to really face the fact that first, like, girl, you're not all that, which is just part of the real world. Um, but just realizing like there are some things that I need to work through But yeah, so I mean, it definitely for sure made it difficult for me, just kind of having those stories in my mind.
Yeah. And so you mentioned therapy. So would you mind? Because I know there's so many people. I'm thinking about somebody that I know right now who is actually having a similar experience in college, as you're sharing. And I'm thinking about like, what are some things that you learned in therapy that you could share that's maybe some of these younger girls who might listen to this and are really also struggling with those identity issues and those feelings of not being enough? What are some of the things that you learned that you could share?
Yes. Oh my gosh, so much. So I actually have gone in three different instances, which is crazy. Um, I went one time, well, yeah, while right after college, and then I went another time during 2020, which shoot, who wasn't in therapy, okay?
Right.
Went another time, like a year or two after that. So I've gone at different stages of my life, which has been interesting too, because sometimes there's certain things that even though we feel like we've overcome it or we've healed from it, and when you hit a different season of your life, it can come back up and it can show up in a different way.
Right.
So I think that's one of the biggest things I learned is like the dad stuff has come up in different areas of life. So with the things that I learned when I was in there in college was just to first of all, look at like what is the story that I'm telling myself. So she had me do a lot of exercises. I remember she had me drawing pictures and just a lot of different things to connect with my mind of like, why do I feel like I'm a failure? Because that's all I kept telling her was, I feel like I failed. I feel like I failed. And so I really had to draw that out and talk about it. And it was really intense. And then that was when we realized that it came from my dad. And so I think for anyone, you know, like if you're in college or you're going through this, or maybe you're kind of not really wanting to do therapy, because I get it. Everyone has, you know, like the way they feel about
Yeah.
it. But I just encourage you, even within your own time, just to sit down with yourself and just write, just
Mm.
journal. Just start to think about the things that you tell yourself in your mind and really ask yourself, like, okay, but is that true? You know, like, is that a fact? Like, has that actually happened, or am I just already talking myself out of something? I think that's just the biggest lesson I learned in all of the different therapy types of sessions that I've done is to rewrite a narrative, basically, you know, like
Mm.
reframe the thought. So when you have something negative happening, like, oh, I'm not going to succeed in life. Okay, well, what is proving that?
Right.
Right. What is actually telling you that you're not going to succeed in life? And really get clear with yourself on that. Like, why do you feel that way? What things have you seen that are giving you proof of that? But then
Mm.
also building yourself up and realizing all the things that you've overcome already. And even in college, I'm sure there are things that you may have overcome getting into college. Like there's some students that don't get into
Yeah.
the schools they want to get into. Some kids don't graduate from high school, you know. College is a tough time. And I think that it's important for us to recognize that things are just not going to be as picture perfect as we see online, but it doesn't make you any less than, you know, just keep going with what God is calling you to do. And just know it's part of the womanhood journey.
That's so good. I'm taking notes. I'm like, okay, let me start writing some of these things because I'm thinking about like our self-talk. Like maybe at that season of your life as a young college student who's like kind of having to face this reality that like, oh, I have to like this was my dream and I have to like dream again, dream differently. That could of course lead to so much negative self-talk because we so often associate what we're doing with who we are, you know?
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
why I tell you, anybody who I've interviewed so far is like, I want to talk about you, not what you do. Let's talk about you first, and then we can talk about what you do. Because I think when we start to disassociate our value on earth with the things that we produce, we really start to feel more certain that every part of our story matters, you know, even the pivot, even the dream again, you know. And so I would love to actually get into that a little bit with you because so you had this desire. So you grew up in Ohio, right?
I did.
You then moved to North Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm like, let me just make sure I got
Quiz.
all the locations right, right. I know. How well do I know my friend? And then you get married. Oh,
Right.
wait, pause. You have to shift, right? So you're shifting away from your dream of being a singer or pivot, as we'll call it. We're going to call this the pivot
Right.
story. And so there's a lot of identity things going on there because you go from being a girl, growing up in a family in a certain state, going to college, pivoting to a new direction, going to school for marketing, not necessarily like thriving in marketing right out of college. Then you move to North Carolina and then you meet your husband. So you get married and then you move to a desert land far, far away. Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is where I met you. Thank you, Lord, for taking her to
Right.
Albuquerque. And you become mom.
Yeah.
And when I met you, you were working, you were pregnant with your first child, you had
Yeah.
just moved to Albuquerque. Since then, you have done a world of different things. And so I want to know in those moments of like having to pivot, becoming a wife, moving to a whole new state, becoming a mom, leaving your career, launching a new business. I would love to hear some of the ways that you kind of kept your footing in all of those pivots. Is it that you are just so sure of who you are that you're just willing to dive into new things and try new things because you're just so confident? Or, like most of us, did some like fear and some moments of identity crisis and things arise in all of those pivots? So, that's a vast question. So you could answer in
Yeah.
any way, but I'm like, okay, let me hone in on the question a little bit. Move away from home, meet a man, become a wife, start a new career, move to a new state, get pregnant, you're about to have a baby, you leave your career, you start a business, and the list goes on. In what ways, like actually, just what was that journey like for you? All of those pivots, what was that journey like for you? And how did you keep your footing in the process of
Yeah.
that?
Definitely. Well, I think first I'll just share that it was a really big deal when I moved from Ohio because originally I wanted to live in New York. Like that had been my dream for years. Like I'll never forget the first time I went to New York. I just was like stars in my eyes. I was just like,
Aw.
I need to be there. And so when that didn't end up happening, my grandparents had already been living in North Carolina for a few years, and I was getting out of a really toxic relationship, just absolutely terrible. And I just wanted to start over. And so I remember I told my family about it, and they were kind of like, really? Like, you gonna move to Charlotte? Like, what? That's kind of random, okay. And luckily, my grandparents were willing to take me in and love me and, let me come and kind of figure my life out. At that time, I was still working. I think I was at Best Buy at the time. I was working at a collection center. I had like 2 or 3 jobs at one time. I was working at Bath and Body Works. Like it was just,
Oh
y'all.
my
It was like,
gosh.
okay. Um, so I was like, I need to get a big girl job. I need to, start over. And so I left. And I think right as that was happening, I was also I started a blog. It was called Live, Love, Muse. And I was sharing just some of the different, I called them rainy days, like just the different
Aw.
things going through at the time.
Wait,
And I
I
was just sharing,
love that.
yeah.
That's
And
so cool.
so
I didn't know that.
it was that was like my first, I guess, thing I created on my own, I guess you could say, outside of like the
Wow.
covers on YouTube and stuff. And so I knew that I wanted to start my own blog, and I had that going on. I dipped into the natural hair stuff for a little bit, and I tried to do natural hair online and everything. Like, not necessarily a guru, but I guess you could say that I tried that
Yeah.
briefly. But when I moved, I was kind of in this space of really starting to fall into like loving stationery, planners, and all that stuff, and knowing I wanted to do some kind of entrepreneur or something. And then I meet my husband, like literally before I moved, I met my husband actually. I met him on a dating app called Plenty of Fish. I had joined it like a couple weeks before I moved. I was kind of thirsty, y'all. Okay. I was like, okay, let's try to meet some people before I get down there, like I already know a couple of people. And he was on there. So we had already kind of been talking. And then we didn't actually end up meeting in person for a while after that. Like we were on Skype for a long time. And so he really caught me at a very like pivotal part of my life, of me kind of changing the narrative of, okay, I'm no longer trying to work for someone. I kind of want to do entrepreneurship, but I have no idea what that's really going to look like. And then my grandparents had me going to church with them every Sunday. And so that kind of answers like the question you were saying of like what kept my footing. And I think that's what it was I
Mm,
had never gone to church growing up. That just wasn't normal for our family. We didn't like pray or say grace or, none of those things. That was all
mm,
very foreign to me. And so I was exposed to going to church with him every week. And through that, I ended up singing at that church for a while.
Aw.
But I really like discovered my relationship with God, and
Mm,
that was something new. So every time I felt like, okay, I know I want to start a photography business, God, but I have no idea how I'm going to do this. I prayed about it and I let him
mm.
lead me through it. And that was something that I had never done in any other part of my life. Like when I was graduating from college, I wasn't asking God for nothing. I wasn't praying about it. It was totally on me. And so I think that was what was the shift, and I'm
Mm,
grateful for that because, it has allowed me to have something to kind of put my worries and my cares on.
yeah.
I'm not about to start crying, so. And
If
then
you
all,
don't cry, you are breaking my streak of
oh
tears.
my gosh. Um, but yeah, so with that happening, yes, eventually we end up getting married and then we moved to New Mexico. No shame on New Mexico, but I never imagined myself being there. Okay. Never imagined myself.
Girl.
But again, God had us. I mean, there were some amazing things, obviously amazing friendships, Jalyssa being one of
Mm.
them, and so much self-discovery. I became a mom there. I continued to grow my relationship with God, especially because I was now nowhere near any of my family.
Yeah.
Didn't really have a lot of support, and that was for like 5 or 6 years that we were there. So I
Mm.
think as I've pivoted through all of the different parts of life, God has really been the source. And I'm not like a person that can quote scripture, or I'm not a
Mhm.
person that even goes to church regularly now. But the difference is I always look to him, I always pray.
Yeah.
And that has been the thing that has really kept me going in all of the difficult seasons. And it allows me to pivot with the belief that he's going to catch me, like even if it doesn't work out,
Amen.
even if I fail. When I closed my stationery business back in 2021, I was super scared, but like he kept telling me
Yeah.
to do it. And
Mm.
so it's different things where I've done it and I have been very scared. I have been very disobedient for a long time. But eventually I'm like, you know what? You worked it out before, you work it out again. And that has
Mm.
been what allows me to just find that confidence, even when it's not there.
Mm. That's so
Yeah.
good. And I think like what a story of redemption, because thinking about like the college age Tatiana who probably felt like her world was shattered, having to pivot in a way that probably felt forced because you wanted to live in New York and you wanted to make it in the music industry, and those things just were not happening for you. And talking about how, that partnered with some of the things from your childhood kind of gave you a little bit of like a sense of I'm not enough, to being now able to say, I'm just going to do the thing because I believe that God's going to work it out. That is like such a picture of redemption, like a redemption of identity, going from like this identity crisis to this firm foundation. And I love that
Yeah.
so much. So thank you for sharing that. And I hope that, like, I find a lot of encouragement in that. And I hope that the listeners do as well, because, man, like, womanhood is like, I feel like a simile for womanhood often is identity crisis. Like,
Oh, goodness.
that is
Yeah.
like, it almost feels like a mandatory part of the journey for women.
Right.
Like, am I enough? Why me? Like, why is this happening to me? I want to do these things and it's not working out. And to hear that you found a way to kind of like hone in on something that will keep you steady in the journey is so beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. I'm also
Mhm.
curious, when you talk about some of the things that you went through as a child, being in a toxic relationship, having to, come up with a new plan, a new dream after college, to now having, like, you're someone who has tried and thrived in many different things. What are some of the ways that what you went through prepared you or shaped you for the things that you are doing now?
Ooh, good question.
Mhm.
Um, hmm. Well, so the things that I'm doing now are very much tied to the experiences and things I had, when I felt stuck, I guess you could
Mm,
say. And so at the time of not knowing what was going to happen after college, or at the time of shoot, when I wanted to start my stationery business, for example, I had no idea how to even start an Etsy shop. That's like a really good example. Like for weeks, I just was like paused on that. I didn't even know what to do. So I think when I look back, all of those steps that felt so huge at that time for me, things that I felt like, oh, how am I going to overcome this? They are such a small like pebble, in like the
Mm,
bigger picture. And if it wasn't for those, I wouldn't be able to sit here and pour into other people and encourage people and, tell them, like, people always make fun of me because I'm like, oh, well, you just do this. Like that word just could just make somebody feel like it's not that simple, but I think it
yeah.
comes from the experiences that sucked at that time.
Mm,
Um, and I mean, even the same with like the relationships and the different things. I feel like it's all prepared me to know what my value is and what my
mm,
worth is. And so I think even, when we are dealing with certain things and we may feel like this is horrible for me right now, it always has led me to just learn a little bit more about myself. Like you were saying, it's just that part of womanhood where we are always constantly questioning our identity and
yeah.
who we are. And as things change and we pivot, like I'm not the same Tatiana that I was pre-mom life.
Yeah.
Becoming a mom, like that was a whole identity shift. And there were things I had to learn. I'm not the same Tatiana that I was at the beginning of my marriage that I am at this point in my marriage. So it's always hard when you change, like you change as you grow, you
Yeah.
learn and you look back at all the things that happened in the past and you wonder like, how did I get here? And
Mm,
so I think that's really just what has helped me today to be able to do coaching and do my YouTube channel and show up as confidently as I try to. I don't always feel confident, but I try my best to just really pull from the version of myself that might be for someone else that's watching. And I try to think
mm.
back to there was a time when I didn't even know how to do XYZ. And now I'm here, like I'm able to walk someone through it. I can do it in my sleep, but it all comes from going through it. And I think that's really what it's been. It's just my lived experience, really.
Ooh, that's so good. And you just kind of like told me something about you that I never had even thought about.
Right.
Because your business, right? You're a business coach right now, right? You're coaching and really just like mentoring and teaching people like me because I benefit from it a lot. How to thrive in the industry that we hope to thrive in. That's how I would describe what you do as a business coach. And it has been such a game changer for me because I'm one of those people who's like, how do you do this? How do you do that? Like, this podcast would not exist without Tatiana. Let me just let y'all in on a little secret, okay? But I just realized that you decided to become everything that you needed because there's women like where you were who, you didn't have guidance. And there's so many of us who didn't have guidance. And how powerful that instead of just tapping out and being like, this is too hard, all of the bad cards have been put in my deck and I don't want to play the game no more. Instead, you threw the deck away and you started to build your own deck. And now you're handing out the cards to other women. And that is just so powerful. And I've never really put that together before. But it's almost like you had this moment of like, what if I'm the one I'm waiting for? And you took all of those weaknesses and all of those hardships and you turned them into strength and power. And what a true story of beauty for ashes. Like, that's so powerful, sis. And I don't even know if you realize how powerful that actually is because a lot of us just tap out. A lot of us just give out. A lot of us are just like, this is too much. I always use that little like gif of Monique on Precious, like, this too much, like when she's shaking her head. Because I feel like that a lot, but instead you took it and you like made it almost your superpower. And I'm constantly like in your membership, like reading the comments and the posts from people who are in your membership. And I'm just so inspired and spurred on. That's why XO Threads came about, my thrift business. I couldn't have done that without you. That's why this podcast came about. Like, I could not have done this without you. And so, thank you. Like, thank you for choosing to thrive when the devil could have used those things to take you out. Like, instead, you made that your superpower. And I'm so proud of you. Like, That's powerful, sis. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I never
Mm.
really looked at it like that at all. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I love to help. You know, like I'm not
Yeah.
perfect. I don't know everything, but it literally lights me up inside to just be able to help someone else, you know, help them just overcome that step. Like I think so many people don't get to do what they want to do just because they're so scared. So I try in my own little way to just help, you know.
Me,
Yeah.
I'm like a walking testimony of that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm constantly, when in the first episode, I talked about that cocoon, like wrapping yourself in that cocoon. And like, you
Yeah.
have taken it upon yourself to be a pivotal part of several women's cocoons because I wouldn't be able to be doing this dream without your help. I would have not even known how to plug in my microphone correctly. Like,
Oh
you
my
taught me
gosh. You need to
everything.
give yourself some more credit, okay?
No,
You need to give
she's being nice, but I'm so annoying. I'm like, hey, it's me again. Like, what do you, how do you like post a podcast? Like, and you just like so willingly and so eagerly walk me through. And the thing is that I love about you is it's so genuine because when you see my things thrive, you have such great joy with me. And like, what a beautiful, like, beautiful picture of like when Jesus said, like, love others more than yourself. Like that is exactly what you're doing. And so, I'm so proud of you and I'm so honored to know you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, let me just get myself together. um,
next.
okay, so Tatiana, you are such a pioneer also. So you talked about how you didn't grow up like in the church or praying and things like that. And like now that has become a pivotal part of your life. Also, you're a homeschooling mom. So
I
that is huge because I know that that is also an unfamiliar journey. Also, do you have like when you decided to become an entrepreneur, were there people in your family and in around you that were business owners or entrepreneurs at all?
um so my dad, I guess you could say a little bit. He owned an apartment building with his friend. And so that was, I guess, really the only thing. But he also worked a full-time job too. So this was just kind of
Yeah.
something he had going on in the background. So I saw it on a very small scale, but honestly, not really. No,
So you
not
like
really. I
you took that upon yourself and you do this like this is your full-time thing. You're a full-time business owner. You're a homeschooling mom. What are some of the things that compelled you to be so brave to pioneer these things that you had not seen done before?
these words you're using, superpower, pioneer, like, oh gosh.
That
Um,
girl, okay?
um, yeah, pioneer. Okay. So, I mean, I think especially with really both. I think entrepreneurship and the homeschool thing. And I mean, I always feel like this is just me. Like I'm have always been a negative Nancy when it comes to myself. Like Jalyssa was saying, like I always will build everyone else up all the time. But when it comes to me, I can be very much in my head and I can be very negative. And so with both of those things, with entrepreneurship as well as homeschool, that was the case. You know, I just kind of was like, okay, well, who are you? You're not qualified to do this. You've never seen anyone do this. And so both of them, though, at the same time, I put them off for a while
Mm.
and they just kept coming back up. So I would, you know, kind of try to move on and be like, oh, okay, no, we're not going to do it this way. And then I feel like God would place them back in front of me. So, I mean, literally, like, why am I seeing homeschool videos on my YouTube feed and I've never looked up homeschool? You know, like, why am I seeing that? I watched one and it's been a year. Why is it coming back up?
Yeah.
Why am I thinking about it? Why am I all of a sudden meeting all these homeschool moms just out of nowhere randomly and getting to know them and learn about what they do? And then the same with entrepreneurship. It was just like this constant thing of me wanting to have something of my own. And it started with photography. That was my first like real business that I did. And I just think it was just, I got tired of it just being there all the time. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna just try it. You know, we'll just see what
Mm.
happens, right? So I think that is how it is. But I never want to take away from the fact that I've never felt sure of myself in any of those first steps that I took. I always
Yeah.
doubted it. I always kind of felt like I had one foot in the door and the other
Mm.
one is like, well, just in case, I'm gonna stay back here and pretend. I always tried to keep my expectations low for myself. And that's just me being real because, that's just life. But I think the other foot that was in there was just that faith piece of me just believing that God could help me do this, even though I've never seen anyone, even though I don't know what people will think about it.
Mm.
Just try anyway.
Mm. That's really good because, gosh, it is so scary to like launch into something, and especially when it's like you're
Oh,
launching yourself into something. And I think that's the thing about like a pioneer, and why I see you as a pioneer is because you lead these things. It's not like you're really following anyone or anything, not even like trends, not even like, well, what's the most popular video or the most popular business right now, and I'm going to try to launch my version of it. You're like taking the things that you're passionate about, you're like launching yourself into them, and you're doing really well in all of the things that you're doing. And so I love that, and I think that just speaks to, like you said, that one foot that is fully on faith, right? Like I'm stepping out on faith, and when you think about taking a step, it is just one foot at a time. And I think that is okay. And something about your story that I hope people hear is that it is actually okay to step into something. Like, you know,
yeah.
you're not necessarily always have to jump and like hope that you find your footing there, but like you're stepping into these things one step at a time, and you're finding your footing along the way. And I know that we've had private conversations about the struggles of maybe people not understanding, maybe people not
Mhm.
agreeing, and that is why you are a pioneer, is because even still you go for it, you know? And when you were talking
Yeah.
about moving away from home and that kind of being like a shocker, also you've moved across the country and you've left your career to do what you're passionate about. You became a mom and then became a homeschool mom. Like those are all things that took a lot of like a lot of courage, and that is a pioneer. And I think about the story of Abraham. God called him away from his family to go to a new place that he had never been before. And he promised him this thing that, if you know the story of Abraham, it did not just happen like that. One part of Abraham's story that always stood out to me is there's this part in Genesis where he plants a tree. And that's all it said. It's like Abraham planted a tamarisk tree. And I remember one of my mentors being like, look up that tree. At this time, Abraham didn't have no descendants, okay? So I looked up the tree and it said that this is a like shade bearing tree, but it takes two, I believe, two generations to grow. Abraham planted that tree in a place that was not yet his for generations to be covered. That was full faith, you know, a simple little thing that he wouldn't even see the generations that would benefit from that thing that he did, but he did it in full faith that God would take that little act that he did and he would bless it and he would be faithful to his promise. And I think that everything that you're doing as you're homeschooling Emery and you're sowing those like seeds into her constantly, as you're pouring into people like me and all of the many women that you're constantly blessing with your wisdom, you're sowing these seeds of faith. And one day, the generations will benefit from your faithfulness. And so, thank you for being faithful. Even when you don't see the full picture, even when you don't feel fully confident, like, thank you for just being faithful. Because God is going to do something with those seeds that you're sowing, sis. 1,000,000%. So, thank you.
Thank you for seeing me.
Girl, I see you. And I really love that um you're just willing to be so vulnerable about doing all the things that you're doing, but a little bit scared. Doing what you're doing, but a little bit unsure. What is something that you would say to a woman right now who has this passion, this dream, this desire, but they're allowing the lack of full picture, right? Or the little piece of uncertainty or those little things of fear to keep them from even trying it out? What is one thing that you would say to that woman?
I think that there's no right time, to
Mm,
get started. Um, no one is ever going to force you. to do this, but if it's for you, I think this is something I always say on my channel. I know people like make fun of me for it sometimes. I'm always like, if it's placed on your heart, you know, it's there for a reason. But I
Yeah.
truly believe that if you have something that you have constantly been thinking about, and maybe you haven't taken any action on it, but it's always on your mind, or it always comes up, like I mentioned, you know, it's worth investigating and trying it
Mm.
out. And you don't have to dive all in. Like, that's the one thing, like, about me and my story is like, I have never just put thousands of dollars into something, for example, or, you know, I've never just completely quit my job and not knew what was going to be happening. Like, I always did everything very cautiously, and carefully, to make sure at first that I actually, you know, knew what I was doing, I could do it. And I think that it's okay. I think a lot of times we get caught up in something having to just look the way that we envision it. And sometimes the way we envision it can be skewed from what we see other people doing.
Yeah.
And we have to just remember that this is your journey. This is what you want to do, whether it's a business or if it's something else, you know. Um, just try to stay true to yourself and what you want for your life. Because if you look at what everyone else is doing, if you look at what you feel like this bigger thing should be, then you will never get started.
Mm.
So just, you know, start where you are. Where you are is enough. You know, who you are is enough, and
Yeah.
understand that as you take those steps, you will start to uncover more of who you are. You're going to learn even more about it. But you're going to get to where you want to be. But it definitely doesn't happen overnight. It's not going to be easy. You will want to give up at some point with something. Shoot, right now, I just started running. And there have been a lot of times that I want to give up running. Okay.
Ooh.
It's a whole new thing for me, but it's kind of the same thing. It's like, it's something that was placed on my heart to do. I'm trying it out. It's new, it's scary, it's different. But every time I finish a run, like, I'm so proud of myself. And so every time I launch a new product, even though I was freaking out the whole time, I'm so proud of myself. And
Mm.
um, that's what I want for you. Like, I want anyone that's listening this to see yourself on the other side of it. Also be open to the fact that it just may not look perfect, you know, as you
Mm.
envision it. Um, but as long as you get to the other side of it, like, that's the beautiful part about it.
I love that so much. Also, yes, you've been running. Did I see that you ran a 5K? Did my
I
sis hit a 5K today?
I
I saw that.
did.
I was so proud and I downloaded the Catch the 5K app right away.
You bet.
I sent that to
That's
you
my
too.
goal. I'm
I'm
like, I'm
like,
trying to get everybody to start running that I
literally
know.
hashtag
Okay.
influenced, okay? Let me get this asthma together and I'm in. I'm in. Okay, I don't want to open up a whole new can of worms, but I do want to ask you. You said a couple of times right now in that beautiful, encouraging message that you just gave us. So thank you. But you mentioned looking at what other people are doing
Yeah.
and like, how their things are going for them. Has that been something that has hindered you at all in some of your journey of entrepreneurship, motherhood, marriage? Because all of those things are like we see those online every day, right? Other people's
Yeah.
journeys of motherhood, marriage, womanhood, fitness, entrepreneurship. As you have been in the social media space and you have, thousands of subscribers on YouTube, and so there's a lot of eyes on you, and your eyes are probably also on a lot of people. Has there been moments for you where other people's success or other people's perceived success, we should say, has deterred you or hindered you? And how have you gotten, if so, how have you gotten through that?
Yes. Literally every area of my life has been affected by comparison online.
Mm,
Um, and sometimes it's not even that, you know, it's happening. You know, like, I follow a ton of mom bloggers as a good example, you know, and then you get caught up in seeing all of the stuff they're doing for their kids, and even the homeschool moms, like all of the things that they do. And marriage, right? You know, you see, like, I'm putting quotes, you know, like the perfect husbands, and they're doing all
yeah.
of these things. And then I'm looking at my husband like, well, why are you not doing that? You know, or
Don't be messing with
my
my friend.
right. Or why am I not making $10,000 in 1 hour? You know, all of the different things. So I feel like, as crazy as it is, and I'm sure we all experience it, I have not gotten over it because it happens, you know. And I think
Mm,
what I have tried to do, because I am aware of it, is I just try to limit, especially in certain times. Like, I know, like, during, like,
yeah.
my time of the month, I really, because I
That's
automatically
smart.
just looking at myself like, oh my God, I'm never going to succeed. Like, look at her. So I definitely have started doing that where I just don't consume, unless it's just like more of like a safe creator, I guess you could say, or like a safe
Yeah.
space that I have. Um, yeah, there's just certain things I do with that because I know how I get around that time. I'm very sensitive. I can easily get down on myself about things.
Yeah.
Um, and just also just constantly trying to remind myself of what my goals are and
Mm.
what my truth is too, because like I'll look at some of these people, for example, like motherhood, and I'll be like, oh well shoot, their whole family is there, they have the capacity because they can drop their kids off at their mom's
Uh,
house, or
I'm so
and it's like,
jealous of that
right, and
too.
it's like I don't have that now. I didn't have that when we were in New
Hmm.
Mexico. So I think it's just we have to always just remember, like, look back at your life and what you have going on. We have no idea what people have going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Same with businesses. Like, it's so easy for people to just share all of the highs, but there are a lot of lows in entrepreneurship. And I even, like, on my
Absolutely.
platform, I try to share that because I don't ever want people to think like, oh, she's always selling out. It's like, girl, it's a lot of dry days over here. Okay. It's a lot of days where I'm like, do I need to start putting in applications? Okay. So I think that it's just important to realize that we do just see a very small piece of people's lives.
Mm.
And so I just try to remember that and just try to make light of it in that way, that, we're never going to be able to have this Instagram life, you know.
Yeah.
But it's hard because you do see things, and it's hard not to have those narratives in your head.
Hmm.
But those are some things that I've just tried to do, is just limit as much as I can, and just keep trying to remind myself that, like, I have my own situation going on over here.
Yeah. That's so good. And I'm actually really glad that you didn't have a story that you've arrived to this, like, I'm fully unaffected by what I see
No.
online. Why that's so good is because some of us is really out here struggling, okay? And I know there's many women who really feel defeated by comparison,
Yeah.
and that defeat really actually keeps them paralyzed, like knocked down. Like they're either going to tap out of what they're doing because it doesn't look like the influencer that they follow, or they're not going to begin something because they're afraid it will never look like this person's whatever,
Right.
fill in the blank, marriage, motherhood journey, business, all of the things. And so I hope that when women hear that, they hear you saying that you are just mindful. Like that's what I'm hearing you say, is that you're mindful of the ways that that affects you, and you set up parameters to keep yourself from being overcome by that. And that's really wise. So I love that. I love that. And I love that you keep going. I love that you haven't let that like keep you from doing and trying new things and doing the things that you love, because um, that could keep a lot. Like I be out here on, I be trying to lose weight. Okay, I be finding all these girlies, and I'm like, Lord, the fat is still fatting. Like the back rolls are still like my back is still big, and I'm tired of it. And so I want to give up my fitness journey because sis had a big back like me 6 months ago, and now she's skinny and I'm still big. I be mad. Okay, I be wanting to tap out, and so I love that, and I think that is something that we can all learn from. Is like just have wisdom, be mindful of what triggers you, of how it affects you, and set up parameters to keep yourself in line. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, and also
Okay.
I do not like when people talk about the way that they look in that way. But I was just gonna say, just even with that, like, if that is an example, just, like, this is the body that helped me bring my 5 beautiful boys into this world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just that reframing
Thank you.
is huge, because, we can beat ourselves up pretty badly. So
Yeah.
um yeah, so try to just look at it
Yeah.
like that,
No,
like,
I love
no,
that.
these kids, they really got to me, but that's okay though.
You're right. They're here, they're healthy, and it was these
Right.
big
Like, some
old
of the
hips
blessings.
that did it. I love that. Okay, so I would love to hear then, before we close, I want to hear a couple of things from you. I want to hear what are some things, some positive self talk things, and even if you've never said them to yourself before, I want to hear you say, like right now, like what are 3 things that you're really proud of yourself for?
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's see. I am I'm proud of the mom that I am, even though I have my moments where I'm like, what am I doing? I'm proud of the mom I am. And I get to see some of the fruits of even what I did, 3, 4 years ago today. So
Mm,
I'm proud of that.
yeah.
Um, I'm proud of myself for not giving up on entrepreneurship because I definitely, especially within the last year, just with us moving again back across the country, we're in
Mm.
South Carolina now. I really went through like a whole, almost like another identity shift. Like life is totally different. And I'm just proud of myself for not giving up because I went through a period there where I really didn't know if I was going to be coming back. So,
Yeah.
um, just for not giving up because it is really entrepreneurship, it can be very challenging.
Man.
So just proud of myself, not only for not giving up, but just having like the resilience to just go through these different seasons that I've had with it. And then also just proud of the new journey I'm on with running now because that's totally out of character for me. I'm not I'm not even saying I'm not. I wasn't an athletic person, and it's a whole new thing, but it's really again just proving to myself that like I can do hard things. I can do things that are unfamiliar to me, and I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud to be, getting out there and running these miles and just seeing how far I can go. So I think that would be
Mm.
right now, I would say.
I love that. And I'm really glad you corrected yourself. You said, I'm not an athletic person, and you corrected yourself and said, I wasn't an athletic person. And one thing that my husband tells me all the time that has like literally shifted my mindset in so many of my journeys and adventures is you're not until you are.
Mm.
And that is just something I constantly tell myself when I feel like, well, I've never done this, so I can't do it now. Like, no, you're not until you are. And so you are an athlete because I see you out there running. And I'm so proud of you. You are an incredible mom. I got to watch Tatiana bring her baby into this world. So I've
She's
watched literally every
up
part
close
of
and
your mother
personal.
up close, camera in the cuckoo and everything, okay? Oh my gosh. So I've literally got to watch every part of your motherhood journey, and you are such a good mom. I feel a sneeze coming on, but it's not coming out. Sorry, y'all. Um, you are such a brave woman, and I just want to tell you that I'm so proud of you because you're very brave, Tatiana. You are so kind and you're so willing to just give. Even in seasons where you feel depleted, you still choose to give to the world, to your husband, to your daughter, but to the masses. And I'm just so proud that I get to be a part of your core group, and just to see you thrive. And I really was super grateful to have you on my podcast because I feel like this is ours. You've been such a pivotal part of my journey in entrepreneurship, and leading up to this podcast, you got the bulk of my thoughts, my concerns, my fears, my insecurities, and you were always there championing me all the way through. And I just want to say thank you for that. But I also want you to know that you are also worthy of that, to be championed and to be kept and to be nurtured through your journey. And I don't ever want you to stop pouring into yourself and making sure that you reach out, to the women that God has put in your life to pour into you too, because you matter and your story is such a story of resilience and this beautiful, like, picture of identity in that through all the pivots and all the shifts in your life from childhood to college to marriage to moving around the country to now, in every part of your story you still fully show up, and that is really admirable because it be times when this pivots happen in my life and it takes me out, and you know that because you've watched my journey so up close. But I've learned from you that all of the shifts and all of the changes are just a part of your story. They are not the end of the story. So thank you for modeling that for us, so beautiful friend. I love you. Is there anything you would like to share with the podcast? What do you have coming up? What are you doing? Where can they find you? What can they look for? All the things.
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm so glad that I had a chance to get on and do this. Like I've said to you privately, but I just have to say, like, I am just so proud of you and what you're creating
Mm.
here. It is just so beautiful. And yeah, I mean, just to see something that you have had on your heart for a while, even when you didn't even know if it was a podcast. You just would always be like, I know this is something I want to do. Like I want to tell women's stories. Like you would say it, but you didn't know how it would look.
Yeah.
If you even did it like when you had your chair chat, orange chair chat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when I first met you, you were doing like Bible studies with the women that you knew. And it's so interesting about Jalyssa. If you follow her, then you may know this. It's like no matter where she moves to, she finds her people. Okay. She's gonna have some friends, she's gonna have her circle. And this podcast is like such a beautiful extension of that. So I just wanted to say I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you, friend.
Where it goes,
Thank
I know it's
you.
me. But
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, I don't have really too much more to add other than I just want to encourage anyone that's listening this to just, take these words and really just think about what is the thing that you're stopping yourself from doing and how can you just do one thing tomorrow, that can help you. Just what's like one small thing you can do to move yourself in a direction of getting that started. And just check me out on socials. Mainly I hang out on YouTube. That's kind of like my favorite place to be. It's my safe space is YouTube. It's just Tatiana Muse. And then I'm also on Instagram, and you can find me on Tatiana Muse there, or the Inspired Blueprint, which is my business. I do a membership as well called the Inspired Blueprint, where I connect with a lot of amazing entrepreneurs that really want to get started or have been starting, but just want to have that constant support. As well as I have a fun product side of everything where I do planners and
The best planners.
Girl, Bun Girl, and all the fun stuff over there. So I got a little bit of something for everybody, but mainly just come and connect with me. Like she said, I love to just pour into people. So I just want you to come and just get inspired. Honestly, that's my main goal at the end of the day, is just to help you to just see your potential and just do the thing. So yeah.
Uh, I will tag all of Tatiana's links in the show notes because she is truly a safe place for entrepreneurs and truly like a guide. So thank you. Thank you so much for everything you do. But more importantly, I thank God for who you are. I love you so much. And
I
thank you
love
for being
you.
here, friend.
Thank you for having me.
The pleasure is mine.